Okay, Khalil, I just want to ask you if it makes a difference to you that I'm really, really famous in Second Life, and I have been for a number of years. It's my 8th res day. How does it affect your life that I'm such a celebrity?
Doesn't really affect my life at all.
But doesn't it bother you if when we're in public and I talk about Second Life like with total strangers on the street, or just start with about Second Life this, Second Life that?
Well, yeah, but
is that not embarrassing, kind of a little bit?
It is, but it just doesn't bother me that you're like a celebrity, quote unquote.
Well, you could be like bragging in front of your friends and stuff.
Nah.
Why not?
My friends just really don't care about Second Life, so.
All right, I guess that's a sad reality. Can you just state the station ID then, please? You're listening to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley.
You're listening to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley.
Thanks for your enthusiasm. Now go play with your friends.
Okay.
Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre. I'm not here with Joe Yardley because Joe Yardley is, how do they say in the military, MIA, missing in action. But I'm here already with our special guest today, Canary Beck. Hi, Becky.
Hi, Drax. Thanks for having me on.
We wanted to bring you in a little bit later, but since Joe is missing and I really hate the sound of my voice, I'll bring you in right away. Becky is the owner of the Basilique Sim in Second Life. She's a singer. She's a virtual theater impresario with an impressive resume. She's very opinionated, which is great because that makes us very compatible. Blogger who writes about everything there is to write about, including Second Life history quizzes that waste people's time, including mine. I did 62% on that, which is depressing.
Ooh. Oh, it was a sneaky test.
The quiz is over, but we'll link to it, and I think people can still do it, I suppose. Just for fun.
Absolutely. It's the response to the quiz has been amazing. I have to check again, but the last couple of times I checked, we were well over 650 people who have gone and taken the quiz. So it's really impressed me with how interested people are with Second Life history.
In the station ID, we heard a little boy named Kaleo mention that it's my birthday. As we go to air, it's my 8th res day.
Oh.
So, I'm already kind of a little bit drunk. No, I'm not drinking.
Happy res day to you.
I think Becky is drinking on my behalf.
Not yet.
Well, anyway, as we go to air, which is Friday, it is actually my birthday, February 20th, my res day. And if you listen to this show in the morning when we post it, please come to the Vortex Club at 2 p.m. There's a res day party with DJ Loki. The Vortex Club is an awesome club. And DJ Loki should be well known. And if you don't know who he is, then you should come. Let's get to a few housekeeping notes real quick. You can get in touch with us. The show's avatar is Drax Files. You can send us news scoops. You can send us press releases. Let us know what's happening in Second Life and elsewhere. On Skype, you can leave us a voicemail under Drax Files. And the email is radio@draxfiles.com. You can become a sponsor. You can have your own banner on the website. You can support us on an individual basis by taking out a voluntary subscription of $100 Linden per month. That's $25 Linden per show. We sent you a really cool subscription device made by Chris Lehman from Botanical. So since Joe is gone, and she must be somewhere out there in real life, and she doesn't have a cell phone, so I don't know how to get a hold of her. I'm just going to post the news items that I had prepared for the show on the blog, and then you can look at those, and you can sort of send us your response on the blog, because there's a handful of interesting things. There is a projector that throws a game, or possibly a virtual world, onto your living room wall, but it has a wider field of view than a head-mounted display. Check that out. It's a Kickstarter campaign. It's called Immersis. It's the Immersis projector from Catopsis. I can't even pronounce that. It's a French company. These guys have apparently contacted Linden Lab to make this device, which is kind of expensive. I think it's $4,000. Make it compatible with Second Life. So you can really imagine immersing yourself into Second Life via this projector. And you're not alone, as in an Oculus. You're actually there with your buddies who sit in the living room with you. Oh, since I have Becky with me, what do you think of this thing? Why don't I ask you for your opinion about the news item since you're here?
Sure.
Would you buy such a thing for $4,000 to immerse yourself into Second Life?
Well, I suppose it depends on how much immersion you can get from that. I mean, it's still it sounds like a flat screen wall device. Is that what we're talking about? It's just a projection, or is it a 3D projection? Sorry, is that what you said?
It is a normal projection, but the field of view is very wide because the angle is so wide that your walls to your left and to your right are also going to be covered with the image. So, I guess it is, or what they're claiming on the website is that it has a wider field of view than an Oculus Rift or a Sony Morpheus head-mounted display. So, it's to be tried to be believed, I suppose. But what looks cool in that demo video is that you're sitting in your living room with your friends, and everybody can be immersed. So I thought, if everybody has a laptop with their own Second Life avatar, you could be immersed while you're also puppeteering your own avatar in that immersive environment.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can see that doing that with friends. I mean, I think the price point is going to be unreachable for most people, but it's going to come down in price like everything else does probably pretty quickly. So I think once it gets down into I don't know. I mean, I don't know what would make it accessible, but maybe the $500 range.
And it's something that you can see the educational application of being sort of immersed in history. It's too bad that Joe isn't here because she will be obviously going to be talking about 1920s Berlin and virtual time travel and all that stuff. A couple more news items in our category of duh. Linden Lab is still working on Second Life. Can you believe it?
What?
Yeah, they're really kind of still working on it. So please shut it, scaremongers and sky is falling crowd. There are improvements of Second Life. They were announced. We didn't talk about it last week. I wanted to talk about it. The viewer marketplace, message management, quick settings for Windlight. Inara Pay has a great blog post where Oz Linden tweet is being referenced where he says, I was not left behind with Second Life while everybody moved on to working on the new platform. I really wanted to be here because we're not shutting down Second Life. What is your sense, Becky? I mean, I hear this fear expressed almost on a daily basis in Second Life conversations. But again, I mean, it's not new, right?
Oh, my goodness. Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is something that I think many of us who are involved with the blogs and sort of talking about, changes sense fear all the time. I mean, most changes that we've seen, starting with, voice, I mean, back in 2006 or 7.
7, that's right. Voice, I remember. It's the end of
People
culture.
People are nervous with change, right? I mean, that's really normal. And I totally get it. But yeah, we keep seeing it with every new change that's introduced. Generally, we see sort of fear and maybe a little bit of anger or, sort of rebound or people sort of bashing their hands or wringing their hands. But then eventually people come around. I think, within sort of 3 months or so after the change is announced, once they've sort of seen what's happened, what's new, and seen the improvements and how it can benefit them. But yeah, I think there's going to be the fear of abandonment for sure.
It's the fear of abandonment, but you also touched upon it. We can talk about this in more detail later on after the news segment, because I always saw it as a weird thing that people who are ostensibly forward thinking, if you will, by engaging in something as esoteric as Second Life still is for most people. At the same time, they are extremely conservative in the sense that they don't want things to change. But I think psychologically it's easy to explain because, they found a niche that is very comfortable. Let's talk about prim building. People still make prims and it's amazing, but there's a good number of prim builders who have been screaming at Mesh as the end as sort of an all-front assault on them as sort of craftsmen to destroy them.
Well, change generally involves some sort of new skills or going through a learning curve. And I think that always involves risk, risk of feeling stupid, really, or feeling incompetent, which nobody really likes. I mean, and also something that you become good at, and then all of a sudden printmaking is obsolete. You know, if you've invested time in making that a hobby, and then all of a sudden your hobby goes kaput. I can see mesh is also hard to learn, you know. So yeah, I mean, change is difficult, but at the end of the day, I think it's important to refocus on why the change is coming. I mean, I'm a big believer in focus on goals. Like, what are we trying to achieve? And maybe with the change, you have to ask yourself, is the goal something I'm aligned with now? And sometimes the answer will be no, and that's fine too, you know, and maybe you stick with the old thing. But a lot of people will find that, you know, often change is introduced because somebody believes they have something better for you. And it will ultimately benefit you. And then it's probably worth investing the emotional energy into making the change. I guess that's you mentioned being socially or forward, but I think sometimes you have to sort of think, are we technically forward, being sort of early adopters in Second Life? But I think the change stuff is more about emotional skills. So maybe there's some emotionality where we're not sometimes as forward as we might be technically forward. And that might be part of I don't want to call it a problem, because I think it's totally normal.
From a technology standpoint, we're early adopters. We're really kind of, you know, on the boat to this new continent. But you're saying that emotionally we're children. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You nailed it. I think we're like everybody else, socially, but I think we have a technical, you know, we have an aptitude to pick something up quicker, but it doesn't mean that we're any more emotionally advanced. And I mean, we're just like everybody else, and everyone has, I mean, with every change I go through with any client project, you know, people scream. I mean, it's change. People don't like change in general. A tiny fraction of us do enjoy it, but they're pretty far between. So, yeah, I think it's normal.
It's a very good point. I think it's really not an isolated type of behavior within Second Life, because you put the finger on it. Whenever you are in an employment situation or a project-based employment, which I as a freelancer am, and oftentimes people have different creative ideas around something, and there's always butting heads, and there's always a fear to kind of go too far. You can see it in the people, especially people who fund things. I mean, I understand that to some extent, but they want to embrace something new and risky. But then again, then it's like that split personality, an occupational hazard. I think of money people, where the other half in their brain says, no, it's going to fail.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the other thing too is Linden Lab hasn't handled some change management processes as well as maybe they could have, or maybe they do, but I haven't seen the evidence of it. And I think it's not that the things aren't being done probably, but that there isn't somebody on it to communicate it. And so that probably has raised some fear in some people in terms of just not being assuaged, because we do. I mean, we're human, and you mentioned being children, but I will even go so far to say myself, everybody included, is we do like to be treated with, you know, a great deal of communication. The more we're communicated with, I think sometimes the better we feel. So that helps as well.
That's a very good point. And I think Linden Lab, as we talked here often, is that they, under the new regime, have identified that as something where they have to get better at communicating with what they're doing to us, the plebs. And
yeah, I mean, in the last year they haven't they? I mean, really, the amount of communication coming out from Ebe, I think, and the team has been really, really great. They've been out there, they've been reaching out, and I think that we're starting to eat it up and really show that we enjoy that. So I think they need to keep doing that. It's great.
Real quick, a couple more news items on live. The makers of SL Go have announced that you can now play shared media on SL Go, which is really awesome. Flash-based media. Senior product manager at OnLive, Dennis Harper, who also seems to be in World 24/7 in the SL Go support chat, and he's getting paid for that. How unfair is that? When you're logged into SL via SL Go, and others are in World via the regular desktop-based or laptop-based viewer, you can watch a YouTube video together in real time.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, I do workarounds with friends where we will put on a movie, but we don't do it in World. So that would be great. Do a lot of movies. We have a movie night actually on Friday nights now.
That's awesome. I think, shared media is one of these unsung things that I use all the time. And people in the new VR community and the hardware making folks, whenever I sort of bump into them at these conferences, the 25-year-olds, and they tell me, you can now bring in a YouTube video into VR. And I go like, are you kidding me? You can do this in SL since 2008 or something. This is an awesome feature. Let me quote Dennis Harper here. He emailed me. This is a quote from him. We at OnLive have been listening to a lot of people in our SLGO chat group, and a lot of people have been crying about wanting media. I ran the project by our engineering team, and it turned out to be a simple thing. We still need to support QuickTime. It might be a bit longer, so we're talking about Flash-based media. The trouble with these pesky plugins is that they want to update themselves. That's bad for a cloud server. Dennis goes on to saying he was watching my iPad video from SLGO on his iPad, like a wormhole, end quote. Musician Oblay, I profiled in episode 25 of the video series. Oblay has been in the mainstream media. He's been in the Durango Herald and on Colorado Public Radio. Unbelievable that I live to see the day where my Google News alert for Second Life has produced a positive story that has nothing to do with divorce or flying, whatever, male genitalia, let's say. So it's a win for SL. It's in the mainstream press. It's amazing. Here's a musician who connects to a global audience from his remote mountain residence. And apparently the local news were alerted through my video.
Well done. That's great.
You have to balance the mainstream media's obsession with titillation and sensationalism by producing your own and countering it. And I, in my converted garage here, in my tiny little 3x2 garage that my family puts me into so they get rid of me, I'm producing these videos, and outside is the dog barking.
I think he's corroborating your story.
Exactly. That this is a mom and pop situation, operation without mom. But the point is, we can all do that. And let me just throw this out there to the listener. You can do this too. You can do a little machinima, a little fly over your favorite sim and just put it out on the YouTubes. And, doesn't have to be super polished. Get a Space Navigator, fly over stuff. Inara Pay has been starting to make just basic sort of sim sort of fly-throughs very effective. Put some music underneath and throw it out there so that we have positive examples of how stuff looks. I'm sorry about this dog. Real quick, 2 more news items, and then we get on with the important stuff. New World Notes has reported on the VR hype. I just want to mention this is a hilarious video. Reported on the VR hype as it stood in the early 1990s. New World Notes linked to a talk show called Computer Chronicles that features an early head-mounted display. Hilarious. A guy from Autodesk, the makers of Maya, is demoing that head-mounted display with a really early version of sort of a basic immersive space. But you see some head tracking, which is very interesting on a 386 PC. You see a data glove. So that was in the early 90s. And everybody was saying, hey, this is going to take off big time, just as they're saying today. And we had Jackie Mori on, who gave us a perspective. We're going to link to that show with Jackie because she is a living legend in VR. She's also actually going to write a book about her time in VR, which I think she's been in that business over 30 years. And, it's been around. So it's not a foregone conclusion that this time VR is going to push into the mainstream. I talked to my friend Loki Elliott recently, and Loki Elliott posted a picture on Twitter where his Oculus DK2 is in the shelf. And I have to tell you honestly, it was amazing to use the Oculus, but I don't use it much. I'm immersed through the screen. There are issues with these prototypes. No doubt that the consumer version will be a lot better, and there's a lot of other competitive head-mounted displays out there. But I would maintain that the power of immersion in Second Life specifically has to do with your identification with the avatar, and it's not completely necessary to be shutting everything else out. It shuts itself out automatically, just like a book, right? Becky, what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I'm a big believer that it's not, SL is not about the tech. The tech is an enabler, but it's all about your head. It's your head being in it. And you're right, the book is a good example. There's disadvantages to being shut out personally, and also I think from a marketing and promotion perspective, because I know that it's going to be cool, and I'm excited to try the Oculus. But I think that, in terms of putting goggles on people and shutting them away, it seems to isolate us, which is sort of the opposite of connection, which I think is one of the big buzzwords, or really identifying words that we can use to actually promote it. So it kind of plays against some of the benefits. So I see it as sort of an interesting technology aspect that needs to be softened somehow in the messaging of how we use it.
Messaging. I love your marketing lingo. We're going to go all into language. Have we forgotten any news item? Yeah, I just want to mention this. Google and Mattel. You remember the Mattel Viewmaster? I also wanted to talk about this last week already, but just watch this video. The Viewmaster is being updated. The Viewmaster is, of course, that thing that is, I think, 70 years old or something, with stereoscopic 3D little discs that you put in there, and then you look through them. You look through that device, and then you have a 3D experience. And now, of course, it's all VR. There's going to be little discs that you put in the updated Viewmaster. It's not on the market yet. I think it's coming out in October this year. But then it's basically a Google Cardboard put into the wrappings of a Viewmaster-looking device, and then you have your little head-mounted display, and you can sort of click yourself through, Alcatraz prison in the San Francisco Bay or other places, and then you're immersed.
I think it was before my time. It's a pretty old toy, isn't it? But that's those little camera-like thingies that you put up, and you hold them up, and you kind of click through. Is that right?
Yep, you click through them, and it used to be just individual still images that are in stereoscopic 3D, and now it's going to be a full immersive experience. Sounds like a gimmick to me. Again, what we just said, to me, the immersion into a world and the power. Oh God, I'm so tired of me saying this every week. People know it. The power to shape your world actively is the key, and until we can combine that and have more than a passive experience, then we have something that I'm personally interested in. But people have different priorities. All right, before we go to our main conversation with you, Becky, about how would you run Second Life if you were the CEO, first female CEO? Maybe you should do that, pursue that. A new feature of the show, our musical interlude, where we try to prove that Second Life musicians are awesome. And today, because this is my Res Day, I'm going to choose a favorite old song of mine from Paul Giannicola, who is one of my machinima idols, formerly of the Ill Clan. And he made an iconic SL song, and I believe it was in 2006. It's called Second Life. It is damn hilarious. Enjoy, and happy birthday to me.
When I think about what I could be, only magnifies what's wrong with me. But there's a place I can go where they have it all worked out for me. It's just a little program that I run on my PC. Second Life, show me a better life. Show me everything that I can be. Yesterday I was a schmuck at home. Now I'm better than I've ever known. I can dream, I can fly, I can see, I'm a spy, I can run. Second Life, show me a better life. Show me everything that I can be. Second Life, give me a trophy wife. Show me everything that I can be.
So that was Paul Giannicola from the Ill Clan, no longer active in Second Life, which is pretty sad. This song is just too good, and I really hope that he gets together with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra, just like Metallica did in 1999, and record an orchestral version of this song. I think the song deserves it. of course, the Ill Clan made such awesome machinima. They made in 2009 a still kind of iconic Second Life commercial, by the way. I have to link to it. It's still good, and I'm still marveling at it because it's so hard to make machinima seem seamless, and they did it in 2009. It's easier today. But back then it was a real challenge. So let's move to our guest, Canary Beck, and I'm going to restrict myself to asking short questions and let her have the bulk of the floor. Becky, I summarized your activities at the top of the hour. A blogger, owner of Basilique Theater, maker. Is there anything that I forgot, or how would you like to be introduced? How do you see yourself? Who are you?
You covered it off pretty well. Yeah, I have a sim called the Basilique, and we're starting to run what we found to build community. We're starting to run things that people can rely on. So we've got weekly chat salons that happen on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. And we've got music social events that are happening every Monday at 2 p.m. And we've got the Friday movie nights that I mentioned, which sounds like the technology will soon be improved for with SL Go. And then I also produce and direct large-scale immersive theater. So I've done a Romeo and Juliet production in 2013, and then most recently did Paradise Lost last year in 2014. And I'm about to release the movie, actually, of Paradise Lost in the next few months. And I'm a blogger, as you said. But yeah, I'm just about to release the Paradise Lost movie, which is what I'm most obsessed with right now.
That is crazy. So did you film that whole thing with different camera angles?
Yeah, it's going to be a 60-minute feature-length film. It's been a labor of love. It's taken several months to get going, as you can imagine. I'm sure you can appreciate. And we've been in post-production now for 2 months, and we're just sort of finishing up and getting everything kind of ready to roll out, and we'll be letting everybody know about that in about 2 months' time.
It's been attempted for some time to make something longer in machinima. It's a long form machinima or feature length machinima, whatever, and maybe this theater piece that is based on Mozart's music is maybe a perfect way to kind of move from shorter machinima pieces into long form.
Yes, exactly. So it's like moving art. So you can have it in the background. We don't have any voice. But yeah, we were quite anxious, I suppose, in terms of how, is that the right word? In terms of how it translates, because, going to a theater production is one thing. And when you go in person to the live event, that's one experience. But this has been completely, if you've gone in person, this is a completely different event. I am blown away by what I've seen so far. I think it's going to be amazing when it's completely finished, but I'm really happy with how it's turning out. And it is, because you're focused in, tied up on the dancers and on the avatars. It does feel like a movie. I'm amazed.
I'm going to be the first one to embrace it, but I need to play devil's advocate, because what I get from people that don't understand what Second Life is, and they watch any type of machinima, a minute into machinima, they say, is this some mildly retarded person attempting to be a Pixar animator? I'm deliberately offensive here because I've heard people say this. If they don't understand that this is enacted by real people and this is in a persistent virtual world that is centered around user-created content, they just look at it and go like, you know what? What the heck? I can do this sort of in Maya or Blender, very cleanly and perfectly.
I think this is an example of choosing your target market, because this movie is aimed at SLers and it's not really for the outside world, even though I must add that I have shown it to my parents, who were intrigued. But they should be. They're my parents. I'd probably say that about any piece of crap that I put in front of them.
Oh, Becky, look at that flower you just drew. It looks like a flower.
Yeah, it's for SLers for sure. And I'm using it mainly to promote future live shows. But it is very much done with providing context. I believe whether you're an SL or not, I can't know how much experience you have. So I have to provide a lot of context. And so the story is completely given to you. You're taken by the hand. And I think that adds a lot more value to it. So I do see it as being, while it's not my target, I don't think that, I think anybody who's looking at it will think it's interesting. But again, I'm biased. But I do think that it has been designed in the way that you could understand it. It is most definitely a movie that is comprehensible by non-SLers.
Very interesting. And I think I like that you embrace it also. You embrace the target audience, and it doesn't really bother you that it, even if it wouldn't go outside of SL, you just kind of want to embrace it. I think that's actually an attitude that some people get kind of unhappy when they don't do that, including myself, because I get, it's a little frustrating how little response you get from outside sometimes, or like I just said, that kind of response, like, why are you doing this when you could do this in Blender or Maya or whatever and do it like almost Pixar-like quality. And my response is sometimes angrily, you don't get it. It's about also an artistic expression. I don't tell, okay, I'm treading dangerous waters here, comparing myself to Picasso, but you don't ask Picasso, hey, what's your problem with perspective? Are you mentally challenged?
Yeah, you don't. But I think it's all about choosing your goal, isn't it? I mean, that's how you manage your own expectations. And I think that that's how you get what you want. And I think that moving on to the bigger topic of marketing, I think that that's how you achieve what you want within marketing. I mean, I think it's really kind of taking a look at what is marketing and how does it actually work? Because, I mean, I think most marketing is actually highly ineffective, really. I mean, it's got a less than a 2% return on investment on average. So that means for every dollar you spend, you get back a measly $1.02.
You're talking about marketing in general. You're not only talking about SL marketing right now.
Yeah,
right?
Imagine. So this is just on average. Yeah. So I mean, I think, and that's within a broader context and possibly a larger audience, but we don't know that. And I think that there's a lot of data that we could have to sort of come up with some more recommendations for what we can do in SL.
So you wrote many blog posts with ideas around marketing Second Life, and at one point you very harshly attacked me, and I felt really bad, and I couldn't eat for 3 days because my genius idea of bringing back, let's break this down one by one, bringing back merchandise, Second Life merchandise, you thought that this was not a good idea. Now, my idea was to, the pendant that you hang, the Second Life logo that you can buy and display proudly, or the t-shirt that I was given by Bacon Linden, which said will work for Linden dollars, which is kind of a conversation starter because people will say, well, what is this L dollar? What does this mean? Why do you think it would be a waste of time and resources for Linden Lab to start with merchandise?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's not merchandise. I'm not against merchandise as a category. It's not a bad idea. It's just that it's an idea that it has to arise out of a longer term strategy. I mean, I think where we get into conversations in Second Life, and this happens, you have them, I have them, we have them all the time, and I think as a marketer, it's one of my bugbears because everybody thinks they can market and they think marketing is promotion. And marketing is really a much broader strategy. It's not really just design or kind of what you see on Mad Men. It's or catchy jingles or, Super Bowl ads. It's really not about that. That's part of it, but those are tactics. I look at marketing as everything that a business does that touches its customers in some way. So any point of contact with potential or existing customers is marketing. And so if you imagine every single point of contact that Linden Labs has with us, with both existing users and also potential users, that's a lot of work as a marketer. You imagine we have to go and we have to wrap our arms around all of that and figure out, I have undoubtedly, there's a budget. I mean, nobody's gonna question. There's probably a small budget. Most companies have a limited budget. And so to start with merchandising when I don't have or know about, and again, maybe there is a plan that is in place, but I'm not aware of it or I haven't seen evidence of it. But to start without sort of a broader strategy and tackle some of the lower hanging fruit, I think that wouldn't be a good use of marketing dollars.
What are the low-hanging fruits? What should they start with?
Marketing decisions stem from market positioning. And so what I'm saying I don't see evidence of is a clear positioning in terms of how Linden Lab competes well in the market. That's what I mean by positioning in terms of what are we actually saying that we offer and how the way that we communicate that actually helps us in a potential customer's mind and also an existing user's mind understand what we stand for. So what does Linden Lab actually stand for? And I see that's something that's being looked at in the sense that there's been a lot of different kind of tactics tried. But I think that from what I've seen with the numbers that we've talked about, I know you've talked about, Drax, in terms of people coming on board. I mean, over the last 4 years, there's been what? I mean, I think it's been more than 2 million, 2.25 million, I think people have signed up, but we concurrently have something like 45, 50,000. So we don't see that concurrency as far as I know. And again, these are the numbers that I've kind of seen, and I may be wrong, but from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like the concurrency is going up. It just seems to be kind of stable. And so it seems like there may be a core. Chances are these, of course, aren't the same people. Some people are leaving, some people are joining. But on average, there's something going on there where people are kind of coming and clicking and getting into Second Life, but there's something that's going wrong and they're not staying. And so I think marketing looks at all of this and says, okay, what's going on here? And so the low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, is to start with some kind of a level set and sort of say, like the quiz is great, the online quiz about Second Life, because, I mean, it really gives us an understanding of the context of what's happened before, and it helps us to kind of start then to put together, okay, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And I think that there's been sort of 3 eras, actually, to Second Life marketing. I think there's sort of that pre-boom stage, which is the early days, was probably slow growth. I think we had like 1 million kind of signups in that stage. And then everybody knows about the boom, which, was kind of 2006 and 7. And then we had Anche Chung become the first millionaire. And then kind of got all this media coverage. And that was sort of a crazy time. Got onto CSI and, the Gossip Girl tie-in. And so it became sort of, I think the possibility of becoming mainstream hit everybody, and they thought, "Wow, this is really moving into that place."
I'm sorry to jump in here, but I want to cut this short and look at the now, because I think, and I'm glossing over some details, but to put it in a nutshell, the reason why it didn't really explode from the hype and then go from there was it was premature, and the platform was arguably not stable enough for these big things. It wasn't scalable and all this kind of stuff. But today, I mean, where should they go today? They have tried the previous regimes to court the enterprise folks, the business folks are going to sell it as a business platform for meetings and stuff like that. Who are they competing with today? And who should they focus on as a market?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the competition is a great question, because in my mind, the competition is really anything that competes for your leisure time.
Yeah, that's actually, I totally agree with you. I didn't want to say it before you said it, because they compete with every set of eyeballs that now has unlimited choices how to spend their evening.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, what would you say? I would say Facebook and TV are probably the biggest competitors. I mean, what would you add to that?
50 Shades of Grey, the book, which I'm not going to read because it was apparently written by a 4-year-old.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, looking at the competitors, it changes the game slightly, because I think if we think the competitors are other technical, options, I think that lowers the bar and allows us to think, oh, we can get away with poor marketing or we can get away with no marketing. But if you think about, Facebook and television being the main competitors, it really does change how engaged you have to be and engaging you have to be.
Okay, so they have to make it easy. The television, I switch on and there's something. On Facebook, I have millions of people that completely occupy my time right away with the total BS or interesting articles. And Second Life, I go in and, oh my God, I got a menu, I got options, and I give up.
I think the obvious thing that has been touched on, and we've talked about it quite a bit, is remove the obstacles, right?
How do you simplify it? Something where you can do everything. How do you simplify life?
Well, I think you have to set some goals. So you've got to look at new user acquisition and user engagement, and remove the obstacles which we've identified as being, what do I do? I think it's not clear that we don't understand actually what do I do. We have to answer some main questions for people when they're coming in and they really, really know nothing. I think marketing has to be done at a very, very basic level. And so We've talked a little bit before about new user engagement and sort of stickiness and how do we get people to stay. And one of the first things is really looking at getting that first process when you come through the door, making sure that you have your handheld so that even before that, you need to be able to understand how do you sign up and what's it for. So I think there's a bit of a lack of clarity around that. But we do know that people are signing up. So once they do sign up, how do we then address the problem of them not staying? So I think we have to look at holding their hands through that whole process and providing them with a number of Sherpas, I would say, a number of guides. So I'd say to start that is we need to start looking at testing tactics. So once we have, I'm going to make some assumptions here. I never get into tactics without having goals in place. So I would have sort of main goals for new users and main goals for residents. I would make some assumptions that, we have some goals around concurrent users and volume and that sort of thing, land sales. We'd have to figure out what the goals were. But assuming we had that all in place, then the first thing we'd have to do is test tactics. And to do that, we have to perform research and figure out, which I think you've started somewhat with your Drax files, with, what are some compelling Second Life use cases, but really basic ones.
Okay, but let's be concrete. So are you saying that maybe Linden Labs should actually invite people to kind of a focus group and then kind of have them run through some different scenarios and then kind of find out, how did they kind of fare with this?
Yeah, exactly. We have to watch people and see what they're doing, and we need to survey them. We need to take a look at, okay, we have to group them into logical groupings and sort of make some assumptions. Sure, we don't have all the data, I'm sure, but there needs to be some user personas created. And I think that makes people a little nervous sometimes. I mean, it's certainly what I see with my clients is once you sort of start positioning and getting people to pick something and make a choice and say, I'm going this way, people get a bit nervous that, oh, what about this? What about that? You're leaving out, 50% of the market. But I think by focusing in on specific types of users, whether it's, if you look at the blogs, I think something like 90% of the bloggers out there, blogs are quite fashion related.
Fashion. Yep.
I don't see a lot of marketing done to bring in more people that have that interest.
Oh, very good point. Mm-hmm.
So kind of focusing on these major obvious, not obvious, I suppose, but, I think that's a data point that I've kind of seen and gleaned from some lists out there. But I think if you have the data and there's going to be loads of data on the users.
I'm going to be so brutally putting you on the spot, almost like a British news person, not as cuddly as a American news person where they go, okay, sure, here's another softball. No, I'm going to go all UK on you because that's where you live. When you focus on fashion, let's say, or Linden Lab says we're going to put X amount of money to really get people who are interested in experiencing fashion or making it, isn't there a problem that the message then gets lost that SL can be so many different things for other people? I wish Jo would be here because she always says, the excess focus on bikini ads, made it difficult for the educational community or other sort of quote unquote serious users of Second Life as a virtual world to kind of convince their constituencies that it's worthwhile engaging, because it was, well, what are you talking about? You were talking about the place where people kind of play Barbie and Ken in bikinis? No, I'm not interested in that. So how do you solve that problem? Once you kind of focus in on, let's say, fashion, you're going to have a lot of people say, well, I'm not interested in that fluff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a question I get asked every day on my job. I mean, it's a common concern, as I said, that you're going to be turning off half of your market. But the hard, again, going to a hard reality, the hard reality of marketing is that it has to be tied back to a business result. And the business result, that the reason you would pick fashion, for example, is because you've identified that this is not the stat, but I'm just going to use it as an example. If we could say, okay, 90% of the blogs are fashion, therefore 90% of the residents, of course, that's not true. But if that were the case, then we're assuming that somehow 90% of your revenue is being driven by this group. And so you have to then allocate 90% of your marketing budget to that group. And so I think that needs to be looked at. And I think there's a lot of sort of grumbling within within Sims all over the place. And I've heard a lot of it, but I think in my mind, you need to be really clear on why you're marketing. The marketing may not appeal to you. You may be that one person who's unique and has come in and you're not like everybody else, but you're still, getting a benefit from Second Life. And that happens with products all the time.
Right.
I work with lifestyle companies, and I was with a client the other day, and we were redoing their conversion for their online websites. And we came back with a very, very simple way to sign up, which I think is, along the lines of Second Life. And what they did immediately was panic that, oh my God, not every single product is on the homepage anymore. We're going to lose everybody. But in fact, if you give people too many options, they slow down and they don't make the purchase decision and they leave. And so you really have to go to make things very simple, because people aren't willing to invest time. At the beginning, they don't care. They're looking for their immediate, emotion or need to be met, which is, I want to kind of amuse myself, possibly. I mean, there's many different probably triggers that would get them to encounter Second Life. But let's just say that it's, I want something fun to do. So then they look up some search term around an interest or a hobby, and Second Life ad comes up. Okay, great. Well, that ad's better be about the thing that they're interested in, like gardening or whatever it is, right? And then they say, oh, I can garden in Second Life, or I can have exposure to, whatever it is. And then when they get to the Second Life website, it needs to be damn easy. It really does need to be like one click, a couple clicks, and then they get what they want. And at the beginning, that's all they want. They sort of want to get in. And then as they do something, and as they invest, and as they commit, slowly over time, with every extra, 10 minutes of commitment, and then an hour of commitment, and then more hours of commitment, then you can ask more of them. Then you can expose them to more of what Second Life can do. But you have to work with how much they're willing to give, because they'll abandon at any moment. I think of them like shy animals, like one little scare and they're out of there.
But it's so difficult when we're talking about Second Life, because I gotta go back to, let's say, an educational use. I mean, it's such a difficult thing to convince old school educators that engaging with the digital world can be extremely engaging and give the kids agency, because a lot of people in the educational community associate games with a waste of time, escapism, and sort of addiction and all that kind of stuff. Call of Duty, just killing people, desensitizing, whatever. So if you tell them that here is something where you can actually really kind of fulfill your educational goals as a supplement, and they go in there and then they again see mere fashion, what are they going to do? They're going to be turned away.
The thing is that all of this can be done quite quietly. So the homepage is never going to be about fashion. So the homepage is not necessarily the gateway. I think that's the important thing for people to realize, is that what you see on the homepage is meant to be a little bit more generic. It could be. But what we're talking about here is really getting people to a landing page or some sort of entry point that's customized for them, which will therefore have a higher rate of conversion. So that's something you could do. So for educators, if you truly thought, again, you got to tie it back to the revenue. So basically what you're saying here by asking that question is that you think educators are going to drive revenue for Linden Labs. Let's be clear, because if they're not, I don't want to be crass, but I can't care.
Totally understand it, and they probably don't. But I'm saying, this is the conundrum here. But I now I actually see a solution as you're talking. The solution then would be, and I think Ebbe has hinted at that in various other interviews, that they want to make it customizable, so that an educational community can completely customize, for instance, the viewer experience, that only their stuff is being shown, and for example, nothing of the fashion or the bikinis will be on this viewer, so they can completely market to their target group.
That's exactly it. So you have a different acquisition stream for every different type of major user group that you think is going to drive revenue. So you identify personas. So you say, okay, we have an education persona, and they're going to come in on this page, and this is what they're going to see, and we're going to control it. And then on that page, we would talk about, you mentioned, okay, even though you wouldn't have to, because there would be no bikinis in sight, but then you can talk about gamification. And there's plenty of research that shows exactly how gamification actually increases learning. And so then you would focus your copy all around that. And that's how you can make the product, the benefits of the product, communicate only the bits that person wants to know, because they don't really care about the technical side, or they might not care about the win later or whatever. They really don't want to know about all of that thing. They can have their own new user experience, basically, just for them.
I just want to say for the record that if gamification means extrinsic rewards, I'm against it, but that's my personal opinion. People that listen to this podcast know that I'm a Marxist, so.
Let's define that, because I threw that out there. I mean, it's really, gamification is really putting a process or a series of steps that give people doable challenges. So like, Gacha is gamification. This quiz that I just did that got massive response, that's gamification. It's making learning interesting, and guiding you through a process, and people love it. So, and they learn more, and they retain more. So it's a great way to do things.
I feel very strongly about, and I completely acknowledge that I may be a naive idealist, and I talk to many educators, and a lot of them say, yes, complete intrinsic motivation is the goal. It would be awesome if everybody in the world would just want to do their best because of just being the best for themselves without any type of reward system or points or whatever. But that is not reality. And sometimes kids especially, need sort of scaffolding. That's the term that the educators always use, to help them a little bit and then slowly move them to this intrinsic motivation. I'm a very an idealist, and I may be naive, but I do believe that if we work a little harder, we can create a scenario where people just want to be the best that they can for their own satisfaction without dangling a weekend in Vegas, in front of their eyes, or some additional sort of Christmas bonus. I mean, that's really, I'm serious. That's the world I want to see.
I can build on that, because I think you have to take that and you have to see how that is expressed in the world. And so how I see that it being expressed, because I agree. I think people love challenge. I think we see a lot of people are writing about this now. And people love challenge, and they need some kind of structure. It's difficult to come up with your own challenges and then do them. But if somebody makes the challenges, that's the first step. I think builders are coming up with their own challenges. But I think the thing that actually really is one of my best examples of gamification is, have you heard of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron? It was a really big book. It's quite a zeitgeist. But basically, you write 750 words every day. And it's a creative tool that you use to basically get kind of the junk out of your head, blah, blah, blah. So it's a creative tool. But basically, what somebody has done is, you're supposed to, in the book, you're supposed to write it out longhand. But they kind of said, okay, let's bring this into the digital world. And they created a website, which is called 750 Words. And basically, you get on there and you start to write. And now, instead of just starting to write, you can just do that every day. They give you little badges like the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts. And these badges are, you'd think, oh, I'm getting a badge, but you start to look forward to them. So I've been doing this for 4 years, but this is interesting. You get a badge, and they're like these little birds, and you get a badge for 1 day, 3 days, 5 days. And then they start to slow down, because new users need more badges. They need more encouragement. As I said, they're not invested. But then they slow down. And so you get 30 days, and then it goes to words. So I got a 100,000 word badge. And then I think I got as far as the 200,000 word badge, which is as far as you could go. And then, interestingly enough, I lost interest. I think I did it more than 100 days straight. That was my record, I think. Now I do it sort of spottily on and off. But what I thought was interesting is they recently sent out an update that they had created a 500,000 word badge. Now, why do you think they did that? I mean, these people were already well into the habit. They're doing things. These are the builders. These are the active users. But people love challenge, and they love rewards, and this is gamification. I mean, it's been made into a system, and people, they asked for that badge to be made. They asked the users, can we have more badges? So I think that this is human nature. We want the gold star. We want to be rewarded.
This is where I respectfully disagree, because I feel very strongly that we can move to a world. We have to strive for more than getting a bag of gummy bears when you poop and you wipe your butt, as they do. You don't have children, but I have talked to parents who do that. They give a gummy bear when you can wipe. Right? So because that's the next stage. The mother doesn't have to wipe. You wipe on your own. You get a gummy bear. To me, rewarding is the flip side of punishment. I don't like either. The absence of rewards is punishment.
I think what you're talking about, though, is an undeserved reward. I think that
No,
I mean,
I'm talking about being intrinsically motivated. I'm talking about the fact that I get up at 5 in the morning every day. Why? Nobody tells me to do that. I could totally sleep in.
You're special, Drax. You're special. I mean, no, I am actually serious. I mean, Jacob Nielsen, he's a big user guru, and he's sort of user experience kind of guy. And there's a rule of online communities that I think really talks to this intrinsic motivation business, because we find that like sort of 1% of users contribute 90%. And these are what I would call the intrinsically motivated. These guys are just out there. They're like you. I mean, they're out there. They're making it way more than the average bear. And then we have sort of 9% that are contributing 10%, and 90% of people don't contribute. These people are never going to contribute in terms of being builders and content creators and being intrinsically motivated. They're lurkers.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, and I remember Hanno Tietgens was on the show a long time ago, and he said, there's always only going to be one guy with a guitar at the campfire, and the other guys are completely fine with just listening. There's nothing wrong with listening and enjoying it. I agree with him, but I also think that remember the term prosumer was been thrown around. I love that term. Etsy for me is one manifestation of that concept. Of course, Etsy is kind of dominated also by people who kind of do it professionally, but theoretically, every one of us can contribute. And I just that's the idealist in me. I don't think I'm special. I think everybody can get there. I think when we communicate the awesomeness of this creative outlet, and if we remove the wall between, here are the pros, they're very good, so they can do this, and you're just not that good, so you can the only option for you is to sit there and sort of stare at this guy and then clap your hands every once in a while.
I do think that is going against human nature. I agree with you. I think everybody can, but I don't think everybody wants to, and I think that's okay. It's okay to do what you want to do. I do believe that anybody can learn how to do something if they want to, and if they have the natural strengths. I'm a big believer in we follow sort of I'm into the Gallup strength system, which I won't get into, but I do think that people have a native strengths that they apply in different ways. And I can't remember what the quote is, but I think Einstein said that if you expect a fish to climb a tree, you're going to forever think that fish is stupid, but it's just not using its inherent strengths. And I think like if you look at the number of bloggers versus the number of surfers, or wiki editors versus wiki users, or novelists versus readers, it's not going to happen. I just think that is a dream. I don't think it'll ever happen.
Yeah. You're a very cynical person for your age.
I want to work with people. I want to work with what people want and what their strengths are. Yeah. I don't think it's actually fair to ask everybody to make machinima. They A, don't have the interest, and B, don't have the strengths.
I want to ask you concretely about Second Life here, because
yeah, sure.
Because my videos, and that's a criticism, and it's a valid one that I'm thinking about, has come to me like, people say your videos are great, but they're targeting these creators, and that might actually also turn off people who also think, I'm never going to be as good as these people. So what do you think about these videos? Because they're obviously targeting people who are creative.
I think that you need to work with what you're doing, and also you need to get gamification. I'm going to go back to gamification in action, because I think that you need to improve the new user experience through something like your videos, but done in a slightly different way. So I think you've got to focus on hooking new users within the first hour of their user experience, and then give them sort of a free parcel, kind of a land parcel for a limited time
nice,
period.
Concrete. Love it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sort of something like 7 days, so they get their own land parcel, and then guide them to a private space, so off the welcome region, and then put them through some kind of a learning level. And so I know this isn't sort of getting them through the video, but I'll get to that in a second, because I think I see it as a part of a system. I see sort of a bigger, in my head, I have a kind of visual. So I think you want to put them through a learning level that might de-res on demand sometime, or after a set period of hours or something. But they need to learn things. I think we need to, again, guide them by the hand and gamify getting UI mechanics going, shopping, getting dressed, basic stuff, appearance tutorials, shopping and rezzing things, editing tutorials.
There could be a HUD with a nice voiceover maybe, or something like that.
Yes, exactly. And I do, whether it's badges or not, it doesn't matter. But I do think that you need to be given things, and like on a website with a progress indicator showing, okay, you've done the socializing tutorial. Well done.
Then you get a house maybe for your plot.
That's exactly where I'm going. So exactly. So at the end, you get a quiz. You get a quiz, you check off all the things you've done. Of course, you don't have to, but most people probably will because they don't know what else to do at the beginning. You get a culture tutorial, everything you need to know, which is actually, I'm writing a book right now on Second Life etiquette.
You're writing a book?
I am, yes.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, so you basically get what you need so that you can get up to speed quickly, so you have the tools to excel in Second Life. That is, people are coming to this wonderful place, but they're not being given the tools to eat, to dress, to make conversation. It's like landing in a place without a guidebook. And so the free land then could be maybe supported by advertising. There's also loads of abandoned land on the mainland, that might be able to be used for this. Whatever the next step is, it basically has to be a revenue step. So you get your land, you get to try things, you get to customize it, you make it yours, you get invested. That's the main point. Is you get invested in Second Life. And so then you move on and you get offered something to buy because they have to do that because it has to make money. It's a business. And then I think we need to reinitiate the mentorship program.
It's something that has to be personal, right? It cannot just be automated, right?
Exactly. And get not only the mentorship, but reinitiate sort of a new user community program so that region owners are invited to sort of welcome new users in with their activities. And there would be a vetting process. So they'd have to demonstrate they were good, users and welcoming. And then I think one of the biggest...
They could get badges or gummy bears.
Yay! Yes, definitely.
Linden bears.
I got a Phoenix bird badge. That was exciting.
It's amazing. I can't believe that you're talking to me. I've never talked to someone who had a Phoenix badge. They usually ignored me, goes back to high school. Oh God, I'm sad. I gotta go cry.
No, but I think that all of that is amazing. But I think one of the main ties back to real life is missing. And that is one of the most basic low-hanging fruit is that you have what's called a follow-up sequence done on your email. And all the follow-up sequence, you probably heard of this, but all the follow-up sequences is that when you sign up for something, and everybody's gotten this, you sign up for a clothing company, you say, yes, I'd like to receive your free guide or whatever it is. And then they start sending you emails, right? So they might send you an email at day 1, day 3, day 7, and so on. But basically they touch base with you. And I think what I've done in the last, because I've been interested in this and I've been wondering, what's going on with the new user scenario. I've gone through a couple times, got a couple of alts, just gone through the user experience and tested it out. And the thing that shocked me was that I think it was sort of, I got 4 or 5 emails tops. Like that was it. And then it just stopped. And, all of these opportunities to connect with me, to sell me things, to really get me engaged with the company were completely gone. So yeah, I think basically that's then the next step. So once you've actually become a user, then you're a resident, right? So now we also need to be marketed to, don't we? We can't just be left to our own devices to come up with our opinion about what's good and bad. So yeah.
No, of course we gotta be told what to do. You're absolutely right. No, we're not individual. We're not individuals that have agency of our own. No, of course, Mr. Big Brother Canary Beck has to tell us what we should do. What should we do?
You didn't hear from me.
Right. I understand. Now I understand.
I would love the opportunity to be involved or provide some input on this because I think really this is a great opportunity to connect with people. It really is about, obviously, again, I want to keep banging this drum because there is nothing wrong with selling things. But at the heart of a good marketing strategy is actually connection around an authentic set of core values, which is why we're all here. So at the end of the day, it is a good goal that we're all rallying around. And yes, a lot of people think sales and marketing is icky, but it doesn't have to be. And so if you want to treat your residents well, you also need to send them email. I would love to get emails that were not corporate and not icky and not that they don't sell me, but not salesy. I want something written by a real person that tells me what's going on, what's coming up, what are some cool things I might not be aware of, what's happening in the company. Make me feel like a customer, make me feel like you're keeping me in the loop. So yeah, stuff that's starting with like, oh, we noticed that, say, for example, you haven't logged in Drax for a while. And they say, oh, we noticed, Drax, that you haven't been here for, 3 weeks. Hope everything's okay. Hope you're all right. That kind of thing. Here's some tips, people find, for example, personally, a lot of people have told me they have challenges with balance, in terms of, they want to do so much in RL and SL. And just like with, juggling a lot of hobbies, they want to get, tips on that. So you could send them an email, here are some tips on how to achieve balance in your life. Here's some tips.
They need a life coach, a second life coach.
Well, seriously though, I mean, you could include these things if whatever the common concerns are, you can address these. These are real concerns, the things that come up. Or for example, like a lot of people have challenges. They make really close connections in Second Life, and then maybe that person doesn't come in anymore. Maybe you feel bad about that. There's a lot of things, positive and negative, that can be talked about in a real way. And I think that quickly goes away from corporate speak that I think people are worried about, and just addresses the things that you are concerned about as a user.
So to me, I also hear actually that people need to get hired to run these things at Linden Lab. I mean, seriously, I think there is a lack maybe of or the strength of these in-house teams. They need to be strengthened to really work out the strategy and then follow through with this, because these are great. I love these ideas, but it means that people, more than one person, is really on the ball, and it's possibly a lot of work, and it probably means kind of stocking up on human resources.
Well, yeah, I think again, it always comes back to the goals. I mean, if you've identified that by increasing your new users by 5%, you're going to make X in revenue, then you can identify, okay, how many people can I hire? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, Linden Labs is a technical company. I mean, a technology company. I mean, they haven't really had to. Or
you know what? We're taping this, as people know. And we're so over the hour. So I'm not going to condense this to an hour this time, because Joe is not here, and the show is called the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. So since she's not here, this show can now be longer. Wow.
Happy birthday to you.
Final question to you, though. We talked about this before. You don't like that slogan. And I want to throw this out to the listeners. Second Life, your world, your imagination. Listeners, come up with a slogan that works for you. What should the slogan be for Second Life moving forward? For Second Life 2.0, for that matter. What is the slogan if the assumption is that Second Life 2.0 is basically Second Life just a lot better with all the problems that we hate solved, meaning lag, concurrency, blah, blah, blah. So what's the slogan? But to you, Becky, why is your world, your imagination not a good slogan?
Because it says nothing.
Really? But to me, it says everything. It's like, oh my God, I can do whatever I want.
I think that Linden Lab needs to own a word, or Second Life needs to own a word. So if you look at the words that are owned, Google owns search, right? Facebook owns friends. Microsoft is kind of on a mission now to own productivity and that sort of thing. And WordPress, sites like that, they own blogging. But I don't think that imagination is the word that expresses the theme, the thread. It is one of the themes and one of the threads of Second Life. But to me, I think authenticity is something, because we don't get a lot of chance to connect authentically with people. Facebook is not about authentic. It's like here's my life in a magazine.
Right. It's like the high school yearbook. Look at me.
Yeah, exactly. It's glossed over life, right? So it's authentic, real, raw connection. Authenticity, but connection. I think for me, connection is a biggie. It's huge. A lot of people are coming in to really connect with people, and a lot of people want that. And so I think connection is a big one, and expression. So maybe connecting with strangers, actually. Yeah, connecting with strangers as well. I think that's not something we get very much, is it?
Well, unless you're a pedophile and you're trying in a restroom to pick up some... I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry. I got to play devil's advocate. I don't know. In a focus group, I would say, but there's some negative connotation to connecting with strangers.
I know. Actually, just as soon as I said that, I think the stranger word is just a bad word. Let's say people that don't know the you that is stuck within a life that maybe, you might want to have slightly different edges to your life. And so if you get to connect with people that aren't pigeonholing you, you have this whole freedom to become and be exactly who you actually want to be.
So you're the marketing genius. You just said they need to own a word. Was that a word, or was that a completely convoluted sentence?
Well, I think expression. I think it's yeah, okay. Authenticity, connection, expression. Yeah, those three words.
Authenticity, connection, expression.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I think it needs research and it needs personas first. But once you have your personas, then you can figure out what is the theme unifying all of those personas, and then go from there, really. But yeah, it has to be based on data and analyzing what's going on right now and what do people actually say and want. So yeah, starting with the focus group that you mentioned and surveys, get in there. People love the survey idea.
They do.
Talk to them, ask them for their opinion. They'll be happy to share it.
Becky, this is really awesome, and thank you for being on the show. Absolutely fascinating conversation. We'll have you back, as I said earlier. The end of the show, if what I said at the top of the hour, if you're catching this show before 2 p.m. on Friday, February 20th, you should come to my Res Day party. It's at the Vortex Club in Second Life, 2 p.m. DJ Loki will spin some tunes. I'll be present to chat and receive your praise for my important and amazing work that I do every day. I will hand out autographs, and it's permissible to kiss my feet or polish my flip-flops. I'm just kidding. I'd be there to say thanks to you for providing the most amazing group of friends I've ever had and for providing a world of ceaseless wonder, authenticity, expression, connection. Come on down at 2 p.m. Other than that, there's nothing happening. Actually, there's a lot happening. There's the sci-fi convention, but there's tons of blogs where you can find that information. Becky, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Drax. It was great.
I learned a lot about myself that I'm now want a Phoenix badge.
Yay! And you're authentically expressing whereas you never were before.
Absolutely. And please do a survey where I can win that Phoenix badge. Bye.
Bye.
Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Maven Homes, Giza Creations, Leap Motion, SL Go By On Live, Stitcher, Ison, Bot Girls Identity Circus, Caravel Design, Vicar Creations, Humanoid Animations, Loki Elliott, Botanical, Death Row Designs, Mad P Games, Angel Red Couture, Fallen Gods and